Hello everyone, welcome to another exciting episode of Dayspring Discussions. I am your host, Sean McGahee, and this is a show where we talk about movies, TV, sci-fi, fantasy, comic books. If you geek out about it, we're going to talk about it. I am joined today by the web slinger herself, Miss Lisa Locke McGahee. Lisa, say hello.
Hello.
Alright guys, so on today's show we're talking one thing and one thing alone, that is Spider-Man Homecoming. That is right, the newest picture by Sony and Marvel Studios. Came out a couple days ago. Hopefully you've had a chance to go check it out, because on this show we do spoilers. We talk about it as if you've already seen the film. We discuss kind of what we feel about it, and then you guys hit us back on social media. Let us know what you thought. Do the Gmail account. You can go on Facebook group, or of course on Twitter, and let us know what you think. So, Lisa, you about ready to do this?
I'm ready.
Alright guys, well, Spider-Man Homecoming came out Thursday night, like I said, and doing pretty good so far. It hit $117 million in the box office this weekend, so pretty good start for this film. It is, of course, a collaboration between Sony Pictures and Marvel Studios, which is something a lot of people never thought we would see, given the fact that, you know, Sony did have a little bit of trouble a couple years ago, so some say that's kind of what led to this event. And this is also the third interpretation of Spider-Man we've had in about 10 years.
Yeah.
Tom Holland being the third person to play Spider-Man. Before that was Andrew Garfield, and before that was, of course, Tobey Maguire. We first saw Tom Holland in last year's Civil War, and kind of everyone was really excited, and I think got more people more excited for this film. So, just to start off, before we get into too many details, Lisa, I'm going to ask you kind of your general thoughts on the movie, maybe see a few things you liked about it, you know, maybe things you didn't. Just let me know overall, what did you think of Spider-Man Homecoming?
Hold on, I have a first thing, though. In terms of opening weekend box office.
Yes.
How does that compare to other Marvel films, or did you look at it?
Kind of right on par, up there. I know they were comparing it to, from what I've heard, they were comparing it actually to Wonder Woman. Mm-hmm. And it's Wonder Woman opened I think $10 million less. As far as, I believe Guardians of the Galaxy 2, yeah, because it was the third highest opening weekend for a movie this year, behind Guardians of the Galaxy 2 and Beauty and the Beast. Okay. So, third best of the year for an opening weekend.
And then compared to other Marvel, they haven't done
Marvel, I mean, I'm sure there is. I didn't do my research. I didn't know you were going to ask me this question.
I'm just curious.
I was unprepared for this information. Thanks for giving me the heads up, Lisa.
Sorry, I was just curious.
Gosh, alright, just stick to the basics, okay? What did you think of the movie?
I liked it. I didn't love it, but then again, I'm not a huge Spider-Man fan. But I did like it. I really liked Tom Holland as Spider-Man. Yeah. I thought he was great. I liked him much better than I liked Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man. I never saw the Andrew Garfield one, so I don't really have a comparison.
I said, like you said before, you're not a big Spider-Man fan.
But I really liked Tom Holland. I thought he was great. He was so, just cute and, just so awkward, and it just seemed like a real teenager, kind of, you know. And I know it took place in a high school, and so but I just feel like the other, comparing to the first Spider-Man, it always felt odd. He didn't feel to me it didn't feel right, in the high school scenario, where this one just felt these felt like real high schoolers.
Yeah, I'll give you that, yeah.
You know, and this felt like a real high school. I mean, it had such a One Tree Hill kind of high school TV show vibe, you know?
Well, yeah, like I said, before, when they were making the movie, they said they wanted to give it kind of a John Hughes vibe.
Yeah, and it totally did. It totally did. So I did like it. I liked it a lot. I thought there was a lot of really clever, funny moments. I really liked Michael Keaton as the villain. I thought he was great. I think the movie overall did a really good job in terms of twists and, not knowing what was coming. I mean, I didn't know a lot about the plot of it going in. So I felt like they did a really good job with kind of twists and surprising you and kind of keeping you on your toes. And I know we kind of talked a little bit after the movie about my only real criticism, I thought it was too long. I felt like there were some parts where it kind of dragged. Yeah. Not that it was too long, because there's a lot of movies that are long that don't feel long. This one felt long. It felt long to me. And there were several parts where I was like, okay, this is so unnecessary. Let's just skip past this and do something else.
Yeah.
But overall, I liked it. I know you have a lot of specific criticisms more than I have. The other one that we talked about too, in terms of criticism, was his suit that Tony made for him. Yeah. It was a little too technologically savvy to feel like a Spider-Man suit.
I thought of this the other day. I was like, okay, I feel like when Honest Trailers does their little riff of this film, their title for it is going to be Teenage Iron Man.
Teenage Iron Man, yeah. Yeah, like his suit talking to him, I thought that was... That really was completely
Which, by the way, I totally forgot. That was Jennifer Connelly doing the voice, too.
Oh, really?
Karen, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I did not know that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was, I think, one of the biggest parts that I thought was unnecessary. Like the whole scene where he was trapped in the
warehouse
storage locker or whatever, the warehouse, and he was basically just learning his suit. I thought that whole scene was completely unnecessary.
To me, I'm going to stop you right there because I'm going to start to get into the little details here. That whole DC angle where, like, where they go to DC to where they, he saves them from the Washington Monument.
Not necessary.
Take it out.
Yeah.
Take that movie out. You're taking 30 minutes out of the movie, and it wouldn't feel as long. I mean, by the time we got to the end of that sequence, I was like, and that was when I was starting to get bored. I felt like it was running long. It wasn't until the twist with Michael Keaton's character that I was like back in it, kind of snapping back in.
Especially because really, you didn't accomplish anything from that scene in DC. I mean, Michael Keaton's character still would have figured out that he was Peter, that he was Spider-Man without that scene. The whole, he already knew he liked Liz, so that wasn't necessary.
We already knew that Liz liked Spider-Man.
Right. We didn't need to figure out how the whole scene where he was playing with a suit, even the scene where he was, trying to catch the bad guys. You didn't really learn anything in that scene that you couldn't have done some other way, and that they really hadn't already teased in other scenes anyway. So, yeah, it was really just completely unnecessary. I mean, he already had the big moment where he tried to save everyone on the ferry.
Yes.
You didn't need to have a scene, too, where he saved his friends.
That was before the ferry, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, you wouldn't have... He was still going to do that.
Yeah.
So there was no need to have him save his friends on the Washington Monument.
What it was an action beat.
Exactly.
Is what it is.
Well, and even the reason... The whole thing with his friend having the little piece of the Chitauri thing in his pocket and that it exploded in the thing. Why did it explode? They never even explained that.
Oh, I forgot what it was.
They didn't explain it.
Oh, the radiation. No, they did.
What radiation?
From when they go through the X-ray machine.
No, that was why?
Yeah, that was why. They said it because it came in contact with radiation, and then when it went through the X-ray machine, and that's why it exploded.
Oh, okay. I didn't catch that part. It just, that whole scene, you're right. It could totally have been removed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but yeah, okay. So as far as me, in recent interpretations of some Marvel things, okay, let me try to back up a little here. Okay, I was thinking walking into this movie that we were going to get the definitive Spider-Man. So in recent interpretations, like say the Netflix's Daredevil and Punisher. Okay, I have become so strongly attached to those ones where I can't watch the Ben Affleck Daredevil movie or the Thomas Jane Punisher movie to where I've gotten them out of my collection because it's very definitive. And I was thinking, well, maybe this is going to be so definitive, I'm going to enjoy this Spider-Man so much that I'm not going to be able to watch my Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies anymore. Not the case. I love Tom Holland. I thought he was a great Peter Parker. But with this film, it's not my definitive Spider-Man movie. That still goes to Spider-Man 2 with Tobey Maguire. I enjoyed this film. I did. But there were so many nitpicks that it didn't feel like true Spider-Man to me. And of course, one of the main things is being his technically advanced suit. That's not Spider-Man. Spider-Man is, again, the down-on-the-luck guy who, being a superhero and trying to do the right thing, makes his life so much worse. He's the guy where he's out there in the neighborhood fighting crime, and you know what? If his suit gets messed up or something like that, he's got to go home and he's got to spend all night sewing it back together. You know, he's not like he can just say, "Hey, Mr. Stark, I need a new suit." That's not what it is. That's not what is a draw to the character. He's this everyman, down on his luck nerd, and giving him that technically advanced suit, I just felt took away some of what the character is supposed to be.
Except, and to play a little bit devil advocate, I think what this movie tried to show was, here's this awesome suit, but you don't need it.
I know.
But you don't need it.
I get the message.
And,
exactly.
Right, so I mean, I think that's what that they ultimately, that was the same thing. He was that same Spider-Man. Because in the end, he really realized...
He saved the day without the suit.
Right, it didn't matter. The suit didn't matter. The suit's cool and awesome and it's fun, but he doesn't need it.
Yeah.
Without it, he's still who he is, and he's still doing the right thing, and he still chose to be the Spider-Man that you're talking about in the end. I think that was the whole purpose of this movie, was to show that he didn't need all that. And that he is that Spider-Man.
And I get it, okay, yeah, Tony Stark, Iron Man gives you a suit. For character-wise and story-wise, I get it. Tony Stark makes you a suit. He's Iron Man. His suit talks to him. It's got all these new cool things. Of course, the suit he makes for you is going to have all those tricks and little doodads too. Mm-hmm. I didn't like that we started out from there, I guess.
Well, except that this was his character arc. That was the whole point of this. That was his character arc. Was his realizing that even though he'd been doing that before, and then Tony came into his life and brought him into the Avengers and took him to all these cool things and made this amazing experience for him. But in the end, he chose to be Spider-Man.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think this movie did exactly what you're saying it should have. It showed how he got there.
To me, it was boring though. It was boring. The suit was boring, is what it was to me. I was like, oh, good, Iron Man again, great. I mean, it wasn't Spider-Man, I guess, is what I'm saying. I mean, especially when you compare it to, all other interpretations of Spider-Man. But, okay, let's just get into the details here. What I usually like to do is, I got the IMDb page pulled up, and basically go down character for character, talking about kind of how everyone did, maybe some big moments they had in the movie, and overall just, kind of get so we don't miss anything. So starting off, of course, Tom Holland as Peter Parker. I thought he did a great job. Again, we've talked about Tom Holland, good actor, did a great job playing Peter Parker. I liked him better than Andrew Garfield, but those films are neither here nor there. In my opinion, The Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2 don't even exist because they have issues. But with Tobey Maguire is a different one, because Tobey Maguire wasn't really high school. In the middle of the first film, he was out of high school by then. But Tom Holland, this is, something I think the character is very eager, so desperate to join the Avengers, to be a hero. He goes on this little journey during Civil War, and he kind of gets a taste of all that action and excitement, and he's kind of craving it to where his normal everyday life seems boring to him now. Mm-hmm. I also like the fact that they did work up the science angle, where he makes his own webbing, and he's got all these gadgets in his bedroom, and he's smart, because Peter Parker is a very smart guy. So I like that he's in this, was it like a science school too, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, an advanced, special school as well. So they played that up too. But I just liked how, that he portrayed the character very good. I like what they did with him, and I'm very confident about Tom Holland going forward with this character.
Yeah, I agree. Those are all the things.
Okay, cool. Moving on to the story's villain, Mr. Michael Keaton as Adrian Toombs, a.k.a. the Vulture. You want to take this one first? You want me to?
Well, I don't know. I think I'm probably going to be...
Shorter?
Yeah, well, no, not that. I mean, I don't adore Michael Keaton the way everybody else does. I like Michael Keaton. I like Michael Keaton. I think he's done some really amazing films in his time. And I think he's a great actor. I feel like he's one of those actors, to me, that plays Michael Keaton every time he's in a movie. Like, I feel like his acting, he always...
In some ways, I get kind of that.
Yeah. So he, to me, I think he's great, but I just think he plays himself. Or else he plays the same character all the time. Whether he's a good guy or a bad guy or a gray area.
I kind of get where you're coming from. To me, it's the same guy, he just plays a little good or a little bad.
Yeah, it's the same performance, I find, in most cases. I felt that performance that he generally gives in his films worked very well in this one. Uh-huh. So I was not disappointed. I thought he had the right amount of likability and scary factor and bad guy. Like, I thought it was great. I love the twist that we talked about already, but
yes, well, let's just say it, he's Liz's dad.
Yeah, so I like how that twist came up. I was completely caught off guard by that. So I mean, but I didn't dislike. I like him. I don't think he's that amazing range of an actor. Like, I just feel like he plays that particular part very well, often.
As far as the character itself, I love the character itself. Mm-hmm. Kind of the way they portray this guy, he's, part of this cleanup crew, and you see him at the beginning. He's helping clean up New York after the events of the first Avengers movie.
And he gets totally screwed over.
Tony Stark's company comes in and takes over after he spent all this money on this cleanup equipment, and totally screws him over. So then, of course, he turns to a life of crime to help support his family. And really, that's what it is. That's this is blue collar construction worker guy who is just trying to make a living. But the thing that he does is his job is being taken away from him. Is what it is. So he's got to do what he has to do to survive because that's all he knows how to do.
Except that's how it started. And then he got a taste for the money. Did you see that house? This was not anymore about taking care of his family.
Have you seen? So he has a construction company. Okay, a lot of guys who own successful construction companies have good houses because they make good money.
Whatever.
All right. Though, yeah, he wanted to go after the money at the end there because he wanted to just, he was getting, people were hot on his heels, so he wanted to just do that one big score and be done with it, is what it was.
It was not.
Yes, it was.
It was not.
It's exactly what it was. It's exactly what it was. And then, again, there was rumors that he was going to play Zendaya's dad. It's kind of what the main rumor was. So then it turned out he was this other character, Liz's dad. So that was kind of the surprise to me. I wasn't until I saw that scene that I was like, oh yeah, there were the rumors that he was playing somebody's dad. I totally spaced on it at all. So to some people who were, remember that or in on the news, they might not as be as shocked as some of the regular cast or some of the regular audience members. To me, it was just the fact that I forgot about that rumor. So I was surprised by it. And again, by that point, I was starting to lose interest in the film because it was going on. I feel like it wasn't going anywhere. And that little twist kind of snapped me back in. And I'm like, ooh, okay, this got a little interesting now. And that car ride to the dance was awesome.
Yeah.
Like, I love that whole scene, the tension between those two characters, and the fact that, he asked a couple questions, and, he was able to figure out, this guy's Spider-Man, kind of, it clicked to him, it made sense. It wasn't like, oh, yeah, okay, well, you were there, Spider-Man's there, yeah, I got you, man, whatever. He was an intelligent character. It made sense where it wasn't just some dumb bad guy. Yeah, overall, just the way, Keaton played him, he made him likable. I think this is definitely one of the top Marvel or MCU villains we've gotten in a while. I mean, I even liked, I like Kurt Russell in Guardians. I would probably put Michael Keaton somewhere in that top 5, actually, of MCU villains that we've gotten, just because of the fact that he felt so real. The character, his motivations, all this stuff. At the end there, Peter confronts him. He's like, how could you do this to her? And he's like, I'm doing this for her. I'm trying to support her and all this other stuff. And I love the fact, too, at the end, he's not dead. A lot of those MCU movies where, like, they kill the bad guy at the end. He's still alive. He's in prison. And we saw that mid-credit scene there where the one inmate's trying to get him to confess to, I heard who Spider-Man is. And he's like, nope, I don't know. Because he wants revenge. And if he tells someone else who Spider-Man is, someone else is going to go after him. He wants to go after him himself and get revenge on Peter. So I can definitely see him coming back, if not in the next Spider-Man movie down the line, to get his revenge on Peter. So overall, I loved what Michael Keaton did in this movie. Of course, I give him more credit than you did. But he's a good actor, and he's definitely, with the last couple of years, made a comeback. So, all right, next on the list, of course, Mr. Iron Man himself, Tony Stark, Robert Downey Jr. I got a lot of words on this. Go for it first.
Do we really need to even talk about Tony?
Yes, I do, because I think he was the worst part of the movie.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, do we even need to talk about, like, he didn't really need to be in it. It was just how they linked him to the MCU.
It was how they linked him to the MCU, okay, obviously. He was kind of like this parental father figure, mentor character for Peter in this movie or in the MCU. What I had a problem with is Tony Stark at this point in the MCU. This is 2 months after the events of Civil War, okay? He's, his best friend is paralyzed. His other best friend, tried to kill him. And he's in Dubai at a wedding making jokes. Not to mention the fact that he was the main supporter of the Sokovia Accords that registered super beings or metahumans or whatever you want to call them to work directly for the government and not be just vigilantes. So what does he do? he gives this kid this super suit and says, "Hey, go have fun." Come on now, you just were supporting this thing where everyone needs to be responsible, for their own actions, and you're giving this kid this suit and be like, "Okay, go play, with this, high-powered gun or whatever in the neighborhood. Don't worry about it." It didn't make sense to me in this character why he would do that. I mean, of course he was tracking Peter the whole time, but I feel like the way Hope, Happy, and himself were blowing him off so much throughout the film, they're like, are they really keeping track of him? I mean, really, it just didn't seem to fit. And to me, that just it blew me off the character, and really it made a sense again. Like you said, he's just there to connect to the MCU.
Yeah, that's all it was.
He was just that little thing. I mean, his character really didn't do what he was supposed to do or what he was supposed to be. He was just there to be like, hey guys, this is the Marvel Studio movie. It didn't work for me at all, especially towards the end there, because you had the one where, in the boat scene where Peter was trying to stop the bad guy, and he kind of messed up a little bit. So then Tony, kind of reprimanded him and took away his suit because he was like, hey, you shouldn't be dealing with these problems. You shouldn't be doing this, okay? Well, at the end of the movie, doesn't Peter do the exact same thing where he tries to solve a problem again by himself? But this time, Tony's like, hey, great job.
Yeah.
It didn't make sense. The inconsistencies of what Tony or Robert Downey Jr.'s character is saying to him, it didn't make sense to me. I didn't like it.
Yeah, I didn't. I thought it was completely unnecessary.
Yeah. So okay. All right. So moving on from there. Next up, Aunt May. Another character who I felt pretty much. There's a lot of to me. There's a lot of useless characters in this movie.
But you have to have Aunt May.
You have to have Aunt May, but but the whole movie she was just there as a joke. Be like, hot Aunt May, ha ha. That's all. I feel like,
except for the scene where she was teaching him how to dress and dance for the dance.
Yes, that was
her most.
I liked that scene, and then the other scene, probably one of my favorite scenes in the movie, was right after Tony took away the suit for him, and he's sitting there and he's confessing. He's like, I lost the Stark internship, where it really, of course, I messed up, and we took away the suit or whatever. But in that kind of moment, the scene between them, it was like just a real character moment where it was this, Peter had learned that, he had really messed up and he, wasn't doing what he should be doing. And, that between the two of them, it was just a real good character moment. Small moments, those small moments, those emotional moments that I feel like this film and some of the movies don't have enough of to really draw you into the characters. But that was a good scene. Good. We want to talk about that very last shot.
I love that.
So the very last shot of the movie, of course, guys, hopefully you've seen it by now, is Peter gets the suit back. And at the very end, we look up, and I saw as the film, as it was panning up, and I was like, Aunt May's there, Aunt May's there. Yep, there she is. And she's like, what the? Cut to credits. Okay? So we're going to have to deal with that. Now, the next movie we're going to see Spider-Man in is going to be Avengers Infinity War. Then you have the fourth Avengers movie. Then we get our Spider-Man sequel. So I have a feeling in Avengers 3, there's going to be something where Aunt May is pretty much forbidding Peter from being Spider-Man. And then, of course, the world's in peril by Thanos or whoever. So he's got to put on the suit, whether he disobeys her or gets her blessing or whatever. He puts the suit back on to go save the day. And I think we're going to deal more with the repercussions of, her dealing with him being Spider-Man in the next Spider-Man movie, as opposed to the next two Avengers movies, which, have a lot of characters to deal with. Yeah. So I don't think we have time to go through that story arc. Because I've also heard that Spider-Man, while, in the next Avengers movie, doesn't have a big part, too. And like I said, that might have something to do with the fact that he's not being Spider-Man until really it has to come to that to help save the world. So, but, the character, Marissa Tomei, good actress. It's just, again, the way she was used, I guess, I thought it could have been a lot better, in my opinion. So, cool. All right, moving on from there. Happy Hogan, played by none other than Mr. Jon Favreau himself. I thought he was okay.
Yeah, he played Happy Hogan.
There was a little thing where people were questioning kind of the timeline of everything, because in the movie, Happy is trying to move everything out of Stark Tower to the new place up in upstate New York, which they moved to that place at the end of Avengers Age of Ultron. And since then, there have been several films. People were like, well, the timeline doesn't make sense. And I'm like, okay, but at the same time, it's going to take him a while to get stuff out of that building. So he's probably just finishing up getting the rest of it. Because I think there was a shot in the movie where, Happy's standing there and everything's empty.
Yeah, he says that he's just getting the last things out.
Yeah, getting the last things out. Which, of course, they mentioned some of the last things were Cap's new shield, the Hulkbuster armor, and a Thor belt. Now, Thor belt, I'm not too familiar with. Of course, Hulkbuster armor, we saw that in Avengers Age of Ultron. The thing that intrigued me was Cap's new shield. So, Tony and Cap just had that fallout. Cap dropped his shield. So technically, Tony should have that shield, right? So was Tony improving the shield, or did he actually make a completely new shield? Being, of course, the fact that he has to make it out of vibranium, therefore needs to cooperate with Black Panther. It's just a couple things. Plus the fact that in the comics right now, Cap's shield is a completely new shield. It's not round. It's kind of like a... How do I say? It looks almost like the shape of a police badge.
Like a shield.
Like a shield, I guess you could say. Yes, it's not round, which I'm not a fan of it. But he does have a new shield, and I'm like, are they going to try to reveal that new shield like in the next Avengers movie? Or there's several other versions of the shield that have come out. One of them is like, it's a force field, but it looks like Cap's shield. So it's like a holographic shield almost, kind of. I like the classic shield. I think we should stick with that. Speaking of Cap's shield, I'm wondering too, you do have Black Panther. He did the scratch on Cap's shield. And I'm wondering if they're going to have enough, sense to, next time Cap picks up that shield to make sure they have that scratch on it.
Unless it's a new shield.
Unless it's a new shield, or Tony again fixed the shield maybe. Mm-hmm. But there's a couple references there that kind of, got it going there. So that was happy. All right. Speaking of the Iron Man family, we got a small cameo by Gwyneth Paltrow playing Pepper Potts.
Blah, blah. Completely unnecessary. It was completely unnecessary. It was weird. It was forced. It was awkward. It did not need to be there.
I agree. Last we heard, Pepper Potts was on the outs with Tony. And Gwyneth Paltrow herself, she had fulfilled her contract with Marvel Studios. So we talked about, I think it was last week, if she was actually going to come back and do more Marvel movies. Now, had she been in the film more, or had they actually gone out of their way to actually try to, say what happened to her and Tony, or, how they mended their fences, whatever, I would say, yeah, I think she's interested in being, in more Marvel movies, and maybe actually, being back doing this again. But with that little cameo, again, it was completely pointless. Mm-hmm. It was just a kind of a nod almost, but it really wasn't. I really have no idea why she was there.
I have no idea either.
I have no idea.
It was completely
at the end, though, Happy did throw Tony the engagement ring. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, let's back up here, because the last thing we as the audience knew,
they broke up.
So how do we go from that to be like, oh, he's about to propose?
Yeah, I don't know. It was that whole scene was just weird.
They just threw her in there. I did like the fact that there was this press scene where Tony was going to introduce Spider-Man as an Avenger, because there's a scene in the Civil War comic book where Tony does hold a press conference to introduce the world to Spider-Man, but also reveals that he's Peter Parker too. So I feel like that scene was kind of an homage to, the Civil War comic book. Speaking of homages, we talked about earlier how it's supposed to have a John Hughes feel to it. There was that scene there where it was like the Ferris Bueller homage, mm-hmm. where Peter was going through the neighborhood, seeing everyone, and of course when they went through the one scene, they were actually watching Ferris Bueller on the TV. So again, a little homage there to that. The one thing I think was missing though from this film too, the guys over the Long Box Sessions, I listened to their podcast yesterday about the Spider-Man Homecoming, and as soon as I listened to it, I texted him. I was like, "Holy shit, we actually completely agree on a movie! I can't believe it!" So, but the thing they said that they're talking about is in the first couple Spider-Man movies, the Tobey Maguire movies, and even the Andrew Garfield films, is at the end you had that really cool scene where Spider-Man was swinging through New York, and it was just really cool to see on the big screen. It looked really cool and stuff like that. He was the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man in this one. So there was that one thing where he was, they made a joke about how he's got nothing to web to, so he couldn't really swing through. That's why he's, going through the neighborhood and stuff like that. So it was a little joke there, because sometimes in the comics, Spider-Man swings in and you're like, what's he swinging off of? There's nothing in this scene tall enough to where he could attach and swing through. But I felt like it needed that little spectacle, that little, that looks so cool kind of scene, because it really wasn't a scene like that. It was like a heroic moment of just like, this is our hero and this is, what he does. I feel like we didn't get that in this movie, but that's just me. Alright, moving on, going to the high school kids. Okay, Zendaya plays Michelle. Any thoughts on that?
I don't think we need to talk about these characters one individually. Can we just talk about them as a group?
Okay. All right. She has to leave soon is what she said. If you guys didn't catch that, I'm sure you did.
I'm just saying, we don't need to talk about each one of them individually.
Well, I want to talk about, we're coming to the end here, okay? So just let's calm down, all right? Mm-hmm. All right, so Zendaya as Michelle. They didn't say her name throughout the whole movie, and at the end they said, Michelle, my friends call me MJ, which, of course, they're trying to make a reference to Mary Jane. Kevin Feige and the director said later on they're trying to reference the fact that she's going to be perhaps a Mary Jane-like character. She's not Mary Jane. She's going to be like Mary Jane. I think it's stupid. I think the character was pointless out of a lot of other...
I liked her in that movie.
All she did was make snarky comments all the time.
I thought she would look with a typical high schooler. Yeah. I thought she was one of the things that made his group of friends seem like real people. She was that, snarky girl who doesn't really care, but really does care about things, but acts like she doesn't. I thought she was like a real typical high schooler. I liked her.
I didn't.
I liked her better than Liz.
Liz, yes, of course. Liz, she was the typical prom queen, popular girl. Mm-hmm. Again, a character who I think we could have done a little more with, fleshed out a little more. Really, it wasn't, she was just, the, just kind of almost like a catalyst kind of to propel the Peter and Vulture relationship further and make it a little more complicated. But again, I thought they could have done a little more with her character. In the comic books, the character of Liz actually goes on to marry Peter's best friend, Harry Osborn, a.k.a. the second Green Goblin. Where they go with this character, she moved away at the end of the movie, so whether she'll be back or not, I guess we'll wait and see. But let's move on to, the main supporting character, Ned.
I liked him.
He was the sidekick. He wanted to be the computer guy.
I thought it was so funny. The guy in the chair.
Yeah, the guy in the chair. And at the end there, he was in the chair, swiveling back and forth and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, he served his purpose. I thought he was okay.
I thought it was cute because he kept wanting to tell, and Peter had to keep saying, no.
I don't think I can tell. I don't think I can keep this a secret. He served a purpose. Some of the supporting characters like that sometimes can get a little annoying, but I think there wasn't ever a point in the movie where I was like, well, this is out of character, or this character is annoying, or something like that. Yeah, I think he served that purpose pretty well. Going on the line there, Donald Glover as the character of Aaron Davis. The only thing I want to say about this character is, in the comic books, Aaron Davis is known as the Prowler. Now, in the film, he mentions the fact that he's like, yeah, my nephew lives in this neighborhood. In the comic books, his nephew is none other than Miles Morales, the second Spider-Man, I guess you could call him. So, of course, that's kind of a little nod. This film had a lot of, little nods and little Easter eggs, especially with, his high school group, where they were, people that were in the comics, but they were just there. They didn't really serve too much of a purpose. Maybe they're setting it up for future films. I don't know, but for the film, it was just like, hey, this is a Spider-Man character. This is a Spider-Man character. Yeah. This is Spider-Man. I'm like, who cares if they don't actually serve a purpose? It's stupid. So, then let's see here. Moving on down. Of course, Flash. Flash Thompson. Very different from the Flash Thompson we've gotten in previous renditions. Started out as Joe Manganiello. Yes, that's how you say it in the first Tobey Maguire film. Moved on to a different guy. I don't know what the other actor's name was, the second one. So, with this, there's a lot of talk about how the Sony planned Venom films and Silver and Black films might be tied to the MCU. And I was thinking I'd rather see a Venom, not Eddie Brock, but Flash Thompson. I don't want to see this Flash Thompson as Venom. And one thing some people had an issue with, of course, there were those idiots, brain dead idiots online who had issue with the fact that he wasn't white, that he was of a different ethnicity. But this is a different rendition where Flash Thompson has always been the jock quarterback, who picks on Peter Parker, the little geeky science nerd. With this, he was actually smaller than Peter, and the fact that he was just kind of like the rich, popular kid, I guess, is what it was.
They couldn't have really that football. They went to a freaking magnet school
exactly.
for smart
So
kids.
yeah, so he was, he was rich, and he was more of a character that was more jealous of Peter than more, picked on him, is what it was. So I was perfectly fine with the character. He's not the character that we know, and like I said, he's not the character I want to see in his own Venom film. But again,
maybe he'll grow on you in future films.
I don't see him becoming a big buff, super soldier, but. That's here or there. I think he served out of most of the supporting characters. He served, his purpose the best. Just going down. I don't know if anyone caught this reference, but the principal of his high school, played by Kenneth Cho, was one of Captain America's Howling Commandos in the first Captain America movie. So there's that. The last little supporting character I wanted to talk about was Betty, the reporter in the high school. Betty Brant was actually Peter Parker's first girlfriend in the comic books. She was actually J. Jonah Jameson's secretary. I would like to, as far as love interest, I want to see them get away from Mary Jane and Gwen Stacy because they've already done, and I was hoping that we'd see more of Betty Brant. But this character, from the way they portrayed her in the movie, especially the way they set up Zendaya's character, I don't think that's going to happen. Again, just another nod, be like, hey, there's a Spider-Man character we're going to do nothing with. Yes. So, there's that. Other supporting characters that, I don't think... You had the guy who played the Shocker, which really didn't do much. And, of course, like I said, Jennifer Connelly did the voice of Karen in the super suit. But nothing too much else as far as supporting characters. Martin Starr, one of my favorite shows on Silicon Valley, he did do that brief cameo as the teacher, so that was cool there. And I think that's about it. Lisa, as said, is in a hurry to get out of here, so we got to wrap this up, guys. So overall, Spider-Man Homecoming, I enjoyed it. But it wasn't everything I wanted it to be. But I think it does show much promise for the Spider-Man franchise going forward. The question is, what's going to happen after Spider-Man, the sequel to this one, after Avengers 4? Because Kevin Feige's made recent comments to where that second Spider-Man movie takes place minutes after Avengers 4 and is going to set the precedent for Phase 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where he feels like Spider-Man is... It seems like Spider-Man is going to be almost the main focus of the MCU going forward. But of course, we don't know if Sony wants to renew their deal with Marvel Studios either. Based off what you've seen this weekend, just kind of close it out, Lisa. Do you feel like this Sony-Marvel partnership is going to go forward, past, say, the Spider-Man sequel?
I mean, it sounds like Kevin Feige thinks it's gonna.
Well, he does, but he's still not. Sony's still in charge technically.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it seems like it seems like that's what Kevin Feige thinks. What Sony actually... I mean, it makes sense for Sony to maintain this.
Exactly.
If they take Marvel out of the Sony films and they try to, make money on these next couple and then be like, okay, we're out, we're gonna do this by ourselves now, it's not gonna work. Like, people, I mean, even though we dislike the Iron Man bits of it, I think having him as part of the MCU is kind of... Yeah. It's what made this film happen. It's I think what made this film kind of fit and work. I mean, some of the cutest parts of this were things that linked it to the MCU, not the Iron Man bits, but like all the little Captain America bits.
Yeah, the post-credit scene there.
The post-credit scene.
That was great. I love
the beginning where he was making his like little own home movie about what happened in Civil War. It was so cute.
Can I just say I want to see a whole shtick with Chris Evans doing those Captain America videos.
I know.
I want to see a whole. They need to do a viral video, short film, whatever of those Captain America bits because those I thought were hilarious.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. I mean, I think as much as we didn't like how they kind of threw Iron Man into this, almost kind of haphazardly, it seems like, I do feel like it needs that little Marvel presence.
I agree.
So I don't know that Sony would work for Sony if they tried to go off on their own.
I agree because let's be honest, okay. The Spider-Man in the MCU, when he appeared in Civil War, Marvel Studios offering this kind of olive branch. I don't know who approached you or whatever, but they helped save Sony Studios because Sony Studios is getting all the profit from this film. Disney, aka Marvel Studios, is getting the merchandising rights. Sony is going to be ecstatic with the way this film turns out, and it's all because they partnered with Marvel Studios, because they latched on to the big wave that was the MCU, included their character in it, and it's going to help build the character back up again and help the studio as well. So I don't see why they wouldn't, except that for greedy, stupid purposes is what it would be. But yeah, I mean, overall, like I said, good start to reintroducing Spider-Man. Not my favorite Spider-Man movie, but still, I definitely recommend it. Not my favorite movie of the summer. My number one movie still goes to Wonder Woman in that regards. But overall, definitely recommend going to check it out and let us know what you think, guys. Obviously, hopefully you've checked it out by now because we gave you all the spoilers. So let us know. Hit us up, dayspringdiscussions@gmail.com. The Facebook group. Hit us up on Twitter. You can find me personally, Slim Dayspring12 on Twitter and Instagram. Is that going to be it for today?
Yep.
All right, guys. So join us tomorrow. We got another show coming up. Tomorrow we'll be talking the little wizarding world of Harry Potter, which I'm sure Lisa will have a few things to say about. So until next time, may the Force be with us all.